Welcome to lesson 11. Now, at the end of the last lesson, I went over the avatar and just resculpted it a little bit, just making sure the legs, the arms, the waist, the body is all in same proportion. I worked on the body a little bit just to make sure that's looking better, as I had to make it a little bit shorter, a little bit squished up a little bit, just to make it look much better than it was before. Anyway, this lesson we're going to learn how to do the hands. Now this is a very tricky task. It takes a lot of time and it does require quite a bit of attention. As for me, I have tried this a few times and it can be a bit tricky. It can definitely be tricky. So we're going to put in sort of like a placeholder for the fingers, but from the arm we're going to turn this into the palm and the back hand of the hand. So, and then we'll pull out where the thumb and fingers would be, and then we'll just sculpt from that. We will probably we will be using UV spheres for the fingers, since that would be a better option and choice because it's easier to sculpt them. And we would then put them over the top of the little stumps in the fingers on these hands, as we're doing now. As you can see, it's low poly, and we'll keep it like that whilst we just roughly put where the thumb and fingers will be. So I'm just going to using the grab tool here, just grabbing bit by bit, keep rotating around, pushing it in, shrinking down the wrists a little, and probably modifying the arm as we go along, just like smoothing it over, making the wrist a little bit smaller, trying to get into a sort of hand shape. So this takes and requires quite some attention and some skill to do this, so feel free to look at reference images and pictures and to see and to look at hands, as it can be very tricky and it can take a lot of time to do. So as you've noticed, I have started doing the thumb, just trying to get the proportion of the thumb, just using the grab tool, just pushing it in and pulling it out, just studying the anatomy of hands takes quite some time. This has taken me a good couple of hours to do myself, but the more you practice at it, the more you go over and over and over again, the better the results you will notice, and then you become quicker and quicker at sculpting. And no professional on hands and sculpting hands, because it is, I would think, one of the most difficult things to sculpt, but that's okay. Just keep on practicing, looking at references, and then sculpting it down and over. As you can see, it's low topology, it's low geometry on the hands. I'm just pulling it down, trying to put it into place as you see, and trying to make it in proportion with the rest of the hand and arm. I'm going to speed it up now. So all I'm going to do here is try and use the grab, just pulling it out and smoothing it over. And I'm going to be pulling down some more geometry just so I can create more of the fingers. So I just want to put in like the 4 little fingers for stumps for now. I've been looking at other amazing artists on how to do the anatomies on the fingers and thumbs and the hand itself, with drawing on the muscles. And for now, we're just going to put in place some 4 stumps onto the hand. And I've also noticed when rotating my screen around using the pen and the graphics tablet, I sometimes rotate around and I end up inside the leg of the avatar, which can be quite annoying, as you can see. Don't worry if your geometry is not bending the way you want it to go, because it might be a little bit low. That's not a problem. If you just smooth it out and pull some more geometry down from the top, just and then smooth it back over, you can then manipulate the hand a little bit better and then pull out the fingers where they would roughly be, as I will just show now. I smoothed everything back over, pulled everything down, and then pulled out the fingers again. Again, this takes some time doing. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice trying to get the shape correct as well. I'm forever making mistakes myself. Even the greatest pros make plenty of mistakes when modelling and sculpting. go back over and move my hand up just a little bit because I felt like I was stretching it down a bit too much, but that's okay. So with the grab tool, so just smoothing things over and grabbing and pulling them out. Okay, as you can see then I just totally lost my view. It does get annoying sometimes. Right, and then just smooth down the top end of the thumb so it's not too tall. So I'm just going to add that the curvature bit in the thumb. So when you're happy with your hand and you think you can make the 4 little stumps for the fingers, we're just going to put them roughly into the hand where they would be, and just still I'm forever just going back over things I've previously touched as well, just always making it better. It's very easy to get carried away on focusing on one thing, but sometimes it's not always a bad idea, because the more you focus on one thing, the better you do become at it, as it is taking years to get to this stage. But if you're a beginner or an intermediate or even an expert in Blender sculpting, then you know that there's still much more to learn. So once so I was kind of happy with the little stumps I made here. Doesn't have to be perfect, just needs to be a little bit of a placeholder so you know where to put the fingers. So I was just pushing them in and bring them out a little bit, making them ready for the next part we're going to do. I am just going over and just making sure they're all lined up. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, I'm not too happy with the hand, so we're going to remesh it. So we're going to put it to 0.05 or roughly around that area, and just remesh the arms and legs. And I've also noticed whilst looking at this, I may want to remesh this again because I want to keep the legs and the arms separate. I was just moving over the legs here. So what I'm going to do is just smooth down the arm for now, just make that a little bit more rounded, because putting that topology higher you can see a lot more of the detail, as you can see. So I'm just going to smooth that down a little bit on the arm before we go back to the hand. Just trying to get that into proportion to the correct size, and smooth the hand down a little bit. So I'm just going to reshape the thumb a little bit. Now it's higher, bit more higher topology. I can now sculpt it in a much easier than before, since it was too much of a low poly. Couldn't really sculpt it much. But now we'll just sculpt that into something that looks like a thumb. I'm actually quite bad at sculpting fingers and thumbs. Do apologize. It's a very tricky thing to sculpt in Blender, or even in drawings. So it takes a lot of practice, even for myself. I've spent hours on this, so much time, and yet still I'm so bad. So just going over, I'm actually going to now separate the legs from the arms, because in case you make mistakes and accidentally smooth something behind the arm when we're sorting the hand out. So I'm just going to select the leg, press L to select the leg in edit mode, and then just press P for selection, and then that will then create a separate object for the legs. So I'm now just going to select the arms like so, go back into sculpt mode, and then going to continue on with the hand and the arms. Just going to speed it up a little bit. So I'm just sculpting over the arm and the hand just to try and get the proportion size correctly before we move on to actually bringing in the fingers, because it's there's a nice little method that I wish to show, which I've only seen a few artists do, which is, I think, absolutely fantastic after researching this a little while ago, and I've had a few practices, and I think it will be brilliant. Actually, I think I'm going to show this in the next video. So once you've smoothed over, remeshed it, get it to the size you want, get the stumps and everything done on your hands. Okay, I think we're going to stop there, and we're going to bring in the shapes and add the fingers on the next lesson.